The name Hogan has been positively recognized and very negatively recognized from coming out of the womb.
Brooke Hogan has always spoken openly about the weight of her father's legacy. Now, just days after his death, she's leaked an audio clip that caught everyone off guard. What the clip reveals goes beyond family drama. It shows a darker, messier side of Hogan's legacy. And after hearing it, you might never see him the same way again. Let's get into it. The shocking revelations that rocked the wrestling world. The wrestling world was turned completely upside down when Brooke Hogan finally broke her silence about the devastating family secrets that had been buried for decades. What started as whispered rumors and speculation exploded into a full-blown scandal that would forever change how the public viewed the legendary Hulk Hogan and his carefully crafted family image. For years, the Hogan family presented themselves as the picture-perfect American wrestling dynasty. Through their hit reality shows Hogan Knows Best and Brooke Knows Best, millions of viewers watched what they believed was a tight-knit family navigating the challenges of fame together. Terry Hulk Hogan Balea was portrayed as the ultimate protective father, Linda as the devoted mother, and their children Brooke and Nick as typical teenagers dealing with the pressures of growing up in the spotlight. But behind the cameras, a much darker reality was unfolding, one that would eventually surface through a series of shocking audio revelations that painted a completely different picture of life inside the Hogan household. The first crack in the facade came in 2015 when explosive racist audio recordings of Hulk Hogan were leaked, revealing his vile comments about his daughter Brooke's dating life. In these recordings, captured during his 2007 sex tape scandal, Hulk used the most despicable racial slurs while discussing his daughter's relationship with a black man.
So there's a point where I was Brooke black and son, where they've been hanging out, I caught them holding hands together on tour, they were getting close to time for him. I'm not a double standard type guy. I'm a racist to a point. Yeah. You know.
He went further to express his disgust by stating, the fallout was immediate and devastating. WWE fired Hulk Hogan, removed him from their Hall of Fame, and completely distanced themselves from the wrestling legend. But what made this scandal even more heartbreaking was how it affected his own daughter, who became collateral damage in her father's racist rants. At the time, Brooke Hogan defended her father through a Facebook poem, writing, "If you knew my father, you know how hard he fought, and the way it brought a smile to people light, medium, and dark." But what the public didn't know was that this defense stemmed from years of manipulation and abuse that Brooke would later reveal. Another part of the poem said, "We all can make mistakes and carry ugly scars. Because I know my father, I can promise this, just like you and I, things we don't mean can sometimes slip. We all continue learning. This life can be so rough. So if you know my father, please try not to be tough. My father has a daughter, and I have feelings too." The 2015 scandal was just the tip of the iceberg. Brooke was not involved in leaking these racist audio recordings. She was actually a victim of the fallout, as it embarrassed her and strained family relationships even further. But her husband, Stephen Oleksy, would later reveal how the 2015 scandal's embarrassment was a major factor in their family estrangement, stating that his fortune came at the expense of his daughter's dignity. Fast forward to 2025, and the real bombshells began to drop. Following Hulk Hogan's death on July 24, 2025, from cardiac arrest at age 71, a new wave of revelations emerged that would completely rewrite the narrative of the Hogan family story. In March 2025, Linda Hogan posted a tearful Instagram video where she revealed the extent of their family breakdown, saying, "My family is the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She had twins. She got married, and she didn't tell us.
It's been 15 or longer years since I got left Hulk Hogan, and my family is in the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She's had twins. She got married. She didn't tell us. She had twins. She didn't tell us."
This public plea opened the floodgates for even more shocking revelations. Brooke Hogan had been estranged from her parents since September 2023, with her last conversation with her father being one where she urged him to seek health care. The depth of this estrangement became clear when it was revealed that she had even removed herself from her father's will in 2023 to avoid legal battles, opting instead for a separate trust. But the most devastating revelations came when Brooke Brooke responded to her mother's Instagram video with a statement that detailed allegations of systematic abuse that she claimed had been occurring since childhood. These weren't just accusations thrown around in anger. They were carefully detailed accounts of verbal, mental, and sometimes physical abuse that painted a horrifying picture of life behind the scenes. "I've been extremely verbally and mentally abused since childhood. Sadly, it would frequently turn physical, and sometimes it's not by the person you would assume abuse comes. In all shapes and sizes, this vicious pattern has robbed me of any sense of self-esteem or confidence. I've been trained to pretend to have. These revelations weren't just random accusations. There were also witness accounts, with one instance being on a 2009 podcast interview with Brooke and her father. The host, Bubba Clem, who was also close friends with the Hogan family, casually mentioned how Linda would beat, kick, and verbally abuse her.
I was attached to her hip because I didn't know any different.
So then once you went out and experienced life and what normal people do.
And life is so fun and so
and like the
nice.
relationship that your friends have with their mom.
Yeah.
And how they're not, beaten and kicked and told that they're stupid and, and things like that. Then maybe that just accentuated how unhealthy and how unnormal your life was.
The impact of these revelations was further amplified by the discovery of additional family secrets that had been carefully concealed for decades. Brooke also mentioned how she uncovered devastating family secrets, including Linda's affair with a younger guy, which led to profound betrayal and trauma. This wasn't just a case of teenage drama or typical family dysfunction. This was a systematic pattern of abuse, manipulation, and betrayal that had been carefully hidden behind the glamorous facade of reality television stardom. The very shows that made the Hogan family famous, Hogan Knows Best and Brooke Knows Best, were revealed to be elaborate covers for a deeply dysfunctional and abusive family dynamic. The timing of these revelations, coming so soon after Hulk Hogan's death, sent shockwaves through the wrestling community and beyond. Fans who had grown up watching the Hogan family on television suddenly had to reconcile their memories of the seemingly loving father with the disturbing reality of systematic abuse and racism that was now being exposed. The disturbing pattern of manipulation and control. The depth of dysfunction within the Hogan household becomes even more disturbing when you examine the long-term patterns of manipulation and control that Brooke Hogan endured throughout her childhood and young adult years. What emerges from her testimonies and interviews is not just isolated incidents of abuse, but a carefully orchestrated system designed to maintain control over every aspect of her life. One of the most revealing glimpses into this toxic family dynamic came from a shocking 2009 interview that has now taken on new significance in light of recent revelations. In this interview, conducted during the height of Hulk and Linda's bitter divorce proceedings, Brooke exposed disturbing details about her mother's behavior that many dismissed at the time as typical divorce drama.
It makes me really sad because I'm like, how can my mom? I haven't seen her, and she hasn't seen my face in 6 months. Since Christmas, and on Christmas I saw her for an hour.
But what makes this interview particularly chilling in retrospect is how it revealed the systematic way Linda Hogan had been manipulating family relationships for years. Brooke expressed anger about Linda's affair with a younger man, Charlie Hill, her wasteful spending, public criticisms, and emotional disconnect. But even more disturbing were the revelations about how Linda had been undermining family relationships from the very beginning. In that same explosive 2009 interview, Hulk Hogan revealed something that painted Linda's manipulation in an even more sinister light. He disclosed how even when Brooke was little, she would walk Brooke around by the hand, and "this is your dad's stuff, and this is this," and even back then she was undermining. This wasn't teenage rebellion or divorce-related bitterness. This was a mother systematically poisoning her young daughter's mind against her father from childhood.
Even when Brooke was little, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, she would walk Brooke around by the hand, and "this is your dad's stuff, and this is this." And even back then, she was undermined.
The manipulation extended far beyond simple parental alienation. Brooke described how her mother had convinced her that her father was the problem, keeping her on her mom's side through years of psychological manipulation. This created a toxic dynamic where Brooke was essentially weaponized in her parents' dysfunctional relationship, never knowing who to trust or what was real. Ultimately, she was forced to stay away from them.
There's been stuff with my family that's been really, really, really hard to get through. And I haven't separated myself because I'm just like, oh, if they're going to go through hard times, then I'm just going to distance myself. There's a personal thing there that I have to draw a boundary at some point.
The control extended to every aspect of Brooke's appearance and career. When discussing her early image and styling choices, Brooke revealed that at 13, she didn't know how to dress herself and would have gone to Wet Seal and worn jean shorts and, a t-shirt. But her mother controlled her appearance. While some might argue this was normal parental guidance, the pattern suggests something far more troubling: a mother living vicariously through her daughter and controlling her image for her own purposes. This control became even more apparent when examining how the family's reality television appearances were managed. Early interviews from 2006 portrayed a united but stressed family under reality TV scrutiny. But behind the scenes, both parents were engaged in what can only be described as psychological warfare against their own children. The most devastating aspect of this manipulation was how it affected Brooke's ability to form healthy relationships and understand normal family dynamics. In her 2018 appearance on the Challenge Champs vs. Stars podcast, Brooke reflected on how her family went through significant drama and craziness 10 years ago, and how she had spent the last 10 years reforming my life. This wasn't just about dealing with public scandal. This was about a young woman having to rebuild her entire understanding of what healthy relationships look like. The financial aspect of the control was equally disturbing. During the divorce proceedings, Linda Hogan was receiving $40,000 a month tax-free, but rather than using this substantial support responsibly, she engaged in what Brooke described as wasteful and spiteful spending. Brooke, alongside her father, also noted how everywhere they went, Linda was in here with Charlie and she had 8 or 9, 10 kids. They all look really young, and she picked up the tab, with bills consistently being $400 and $500.
You know, we're seeing bills from the Los Mariachis that are $400 and $500. And the weird thing is, no matter where we go, you know, it happens consistently almost every single day. They'll say, Linda was in here with Charlie, and 8 or 9, 10 kids, they all look really young, and she picked up the tab.
But perhaps most disturbing was how Linda Hogan weaponized the legal system and media against her own family. The family's legal team was motivated to have Terry put in jail, and when this didn't happen, Linda would leave the courtroom saying it's a man's world. This wasn't just about securing financial support. This was about using the legal system as a tool of revenge and control. The pattern of manipulation extended to how both parents used public platforms to attack and embarrass their own daughter. Brooke described receiving berating, vile text messages and public reamings that eroded her self-esteem, showing how the abuse wasn't limited to private moments, but was deliberately designed to humiliate and control her, even in public spaces. The psychological impact of this systematic manipulation became clear in Brooke's later interviews. In her 2024 appearance on the Unshut podcast, she touched on how family crap was impacting her career, describing the burden of the Hogan name and the difficulty of setting boundaries with family members who had the power of social media.
Because when you really do have so much trauma and so much stress and so much abuse, it just absolutely like wrecks you. And you, like, I can't remember parts of my life, not because I was high or anything, just because it was just so much stress.
This revealed how the abuse had evolved with technology, with both parents using social media as weapons against their own daughter. The control tactics weren't limited to psychological manipulation. They also included isolation strategies designed to cut Brooke off from potential support systems. Brooke described how her mother didn't help her move, wasn't involved in finding furniture, didn't help her sign leases, and wasn't there for basic life transitions that most mothers would naturally be involved in. This deliberate absence during crucial life moments was designed to maintain dependence and prevent Brooke from developing the confidence and skills needed for independence. The most insidious aspect of this manipulation was how it was disguised as protection and love. Both parents used their concern for Brooke's well-being as justification for their controlling behavior, making it difficult for her to recognize the abuse for what it was. This is a classic pattern in abusive family systems. The abusers convince their victims that the abuse is actually love and protection. The long-term impact of this systematic manipulation became evident in how Brooke struggled to maintain healthy boundaries even as an adult. She described having to reform her life over a 10-year period, suggesting that the psychological damage from her childhood required extensive personal work to overcome. What makes these revelations particularly heartbreaking is how they recontextualize everything the public thought they knew about the Hogan family. The protective father image that Hulk Hogan cultivated was revealed to be a facade hiding racist attitudes and enabling abusive behavior. The devoted mother image that Linda Hogan projected was exposed as a cover for manipulation, control, and emotional abuse. The devastating aftermath and Brooke's journey to freedom. The final chapter of this devastating family saga reveals how Brooke Hogan ultimately found the strength to break free from decades of abuse and manipulation, but not without paying an enormous personal and professional price. Her journey to independence represents one of the most courageous stands against family abuse in recent celebrity history, and the revelations that emerged paint a picture of survival against almost impossible odds.
The name Hogan has been positively recognized and very negatively recognized from coming out of the womb.
The breaking point came in 2023, but the seeds of Brooke's eventual liberation had been planted years earlier as she began to understand the true nature of her family dynamics. In her 2021 appearance on the Hollywood Raw podcast, Brooke still maintained a diplomatic stance, describing her father's ability to remain graceful amid scandals and expressing hope that everybody is always changing. But even then, cracks were showing in her carefully maintained family loyalty. The transformation in Brooke's perspective became evident when comparing her earlier interviews with her more recent revelations. In 2021, she spoke about missing family gatherings and wondering who's going to do Thanksgiving with Dad. After the divorce, still holding onto hope for family reconciliation. But by 2023, that hope had been completely shattered by the harsh reality of continued abuse and manipulation. The decision to go no contact wasn't made lightly or suddenly. Brooke's last conversation with her father occurred in September 2023, when she urged him to seek health care and he offered a vague apology. This final interaction represented the end of decades of trying to maintain family relationships despite ongoing abuse, and it marked the beginning of Brooke's true journey toward healing and independence. But the price of this freedom was enormous. Brooke made the devastating decision to remove herself from her father's will in 2023, choosing to avoid legal battles by opting for a separate trust. This wasn't about money. This was about making a clean break from a toxic family system that had controlled and abused her for her entire life. The depth of Brooke's isolation became painfully apparent during major life events. When she married NHL player Stephen Oleksy in 2022 and welcomed fraternal twins Oliver Andrew and Molly Jean in January 2025, her parents weren't informed or included. The fact that a daughter felt she couldn't share her wedding or the birth of her children with her parents speaks volumes about the level of dysfunction and abuse that had preceded these decisions. The public exposure of the family's dysfunction began in March 2025 when Linda Hogan posted her tearful Instagram video complaining about being cut out of Brooke's life. But instead of taking responsibility for her role in the estrangement, Linda's response was to blame others and play the victim, demonstrating the very behavior patterns that had driven Brooke away in the first place.
She had a huge fight with Terry. I don't know how that reflected onto me, but she cut me out too. I haven't talked to her for 7 years, almost 8 years now.
Linda's response to Brooke's abuse allegations was to deny serious abuse while admitting to one spanking, call Brooke a narcissist, and threaten court action. This response perfectly illustrated the abusive dynamic. When confronted with the consequences of their behavior, the abusers immediately went into attack mode, trying to discredit their victim and avoid accountability. Hulk's response was equally dismissive, casually dismissing the allegations with jokes in a video with his then-wife Sky. This cavalier attitude toward his daughter's pain demonstrated the complete lack of empathy and responsibility that had characterized his parenting throughout Brooke's life. The professional cost of breaking free from her family was significant. Brooke admitted to opting to make herself smaller in her career to avoid the associated negativity that came with the Hogan name and family drama. This represented an enormous sacrifice, giving up career opportunities and public platforms to protect her mental health and create space for healing. But perhaps the most telling aspect of Brooke's journey was how she maintained her dignity and focus on healing rather than revenge. She emphasized that her decision was for healing and happiness, not a big fight, showing remarkable maturity in handling an incredibly difficult situation. The validation of Brooke's experiences came from unexpected sources. Her husband, Stephen Oleksy, provided crucial support and perspective, noting how his fortune came at the expense of his daughter's dignity regarding the 2015 scandal. Having someone who could see the situation clearly and support her decision was crucial for Brooke's healing process. The timing of these revelations, coming so close to Hulk Hogan's death on July 24, 2025, created a complex emotional situation for Brooke. Despite everything she had endured, she posted a tribute on Instagram saying, "My dad's blood runs through my veins. We had a connection deeper than words." This showed the complicated reality of abuse survivors, loving the person while rejecting the abusive behavior. The broader implications of Brooke's story extend far beyond just one family's dysfunction. Her revelations shed light on how fame and public image can be used to hide systematic abuse, how reality television can be weaponized to normalize dysfunctional behavior, and how difficult it can be for abuse survivors to be believed when their abusers are beloved public figures. The pattern revealed through Brooke's interviews showed a clear progression. Early ones, 2006 to 2009, portrayed a united but stressed family under reality TV scrutiny. Mid-period interviews, 2018 to 2021, focused on resilience post-divorce and scandals. And recent interviews, 2024 to 2025, shifted to estrangement and abuse claims. Brooke's journey represents something much larger than just one family's problems. It's a story about breaking generational cycles of abuse, finding the courage to prioritize mental health over public image, and choosing healing over maintaining toxic family loyalty. Her decision to speak out, despite the personal and professional costs, has undoubtedly helped other abuse survivors recognize similar patterns in their own lives. The legacy of this story isn't just about exposing the dark truth behind a famous wrestling family. It's about the courage it takes to break free from systematic abuse and the importance of believing survivors, even when their stories challenge beloved public figures. Brooke Hogan's journey from victim to survivor to advocate represents one of the most important stories to emerge from the wrestling world in recent years, and its impact will likely be felt for generations to come. Through her brave decision to finally speak her truth, Brooke has not only freed herself from decades of abuse, but has also provided a roadmap for other survivors who might be struggling with similar situations. Her story proves that no matter how famous, powerful, or beloved the abusers might be, the truth has a way of eventually coming to light, and survivors have the right to prioritize their own healing and happiness above all else. And with that, we've come to the end of this deep dive. For more juicy content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the cards showing on your screen for more videos. Don't forget to comment your thoughts below.